Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're going to be talking about The Conjuring 3, which is the latest entry in the Conjuring film franchise, as well as the Warren Files Extended Universe, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. The series of movies based on the Ed and Lorraine, bullshit, for lack of a better way of putting it. Now, before I start talking about The Conjuring 3, I first want to just lay some groundwork here. The first thing is, I really liked The Conjuring 1. I even liked The Conjuring 2, even though I felt like half of the movie was like a backdoor pilot for one of the spin-off movies they made. And I would have preferred if it was like its own movie.
Yeah, it really was like a backdoor movie thing where they could do The Nun and Annabelle.
Exactly. But everything I like about The Conjuring 1 and 2 comes down to one key factor. James fucking Wan being one hell of a horror director and being able to create these very scary scenarios and these creepy jump scares and these spine-tingling moments. And so I liked those movies despite a couple of frustrating things about them. The first being, all of these movies insist that they're based on true stories, but they're kinda not. Okay, so
they're very not.
If you don't know, these movies are based on Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine Warren were con artists who tricked a whole bunch of people during the Satanic Panic days that their kids were possessed or that their house was haunted, and then they would perform an exorcism, and then they would write a book about it, and then they would make millions off that book, and they basically, their bread and butter was tricking people into believing that their problems would be solved by these religious means.
Yeah, it should have been said based on a real hoax.
Exactly. And so they were known for having perpetuated multiple hoaxes that were proven to be hoaxes over time. They were sued by many of the people they performed exorcisms on, or at least the families of the people they performed exorcisms on, because the aftermath of them doing their thing and then making money off of it and writing books about it made their lives living hells afterwards. And so the fact that these movies present themselves as based on a true story always didn't quite sit right, because they're not true stories. They're fiction created by con artists, exaggerating events that basically amounts to them fucking over people.
Yeah.
Now, I liked the first two movies despite that, because the movies were well constructed enough and they were great as horror movies that I was able to look past that. The problem with The Conjuring 3 is that it's A, not a good enough movie for me to look past that, and B, more so than even the first two, this movie is just 100% like propaganda.
Oh yeah.
It is Christian propaganda, it's Satanic Panic propaganda, and it's Ed and Lorraine Warren propaganda. And while that is true to a certain extent with the other movies, it's like tenfold worse in this movie.
Oh yeah.
It's
also the most boring.
Yes, that's another problem. Because the thing is, the first two movies, all right, now we're going to start talking about The Conjuring 3. The first two movies were essentially ghost stories where the ghost turns out to be a demon. It's a very common trope these days where you have the spooky ghost and it's like, oh shit, it's actually a demon.
Yeah, hey, we got the guy from Insidious. Let's find an excuse to keep doing that.
Insidious, The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity, all these franchises kind of did that. The Conjuring movies are no different. But this movie kind of drops the spooky ghost aspect and becomes this weird true crime story. And it's based on a real event, because if you don't know, the movie's called The Devil Made Me Do It, or The Devil Told Me to Do It. I forget the exact title.
I think it's The Devil Made Me Do It.
And it's based on the actual event in which a person got into an argument with their landlord, stabbed their landlord, and then claimed that they were possessed by the devil and that the devil told them to do it, and that's why they did it. It was a famous landmark case. The first case in America where someone claimed not insanity, but that the devil told them to do what they did.
Yeah, basically they pled demonic possession.
Yes. Now, here's the thing about this. While there is some tangential relation between the Warrens and this case, most of this movie is complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah. It's it's only loosely based on the events that actually occurred.
Yeah, we'll get more into it when we get to the spoilers, but like basically
and that's even already adjusting for the fact that there is a knowable, definable satanic presence in the story.
Yeah.
You know?
The second, basically everything in like the last 2/3 of the movie is made up for the movie. It's not even part of like the Warren Files stuff. So now the movie is making up its own propaganda about the Warrens. And the way they've done it in this, even more so than the first two movies, make Ed and Lorraine Warren feel like Christian superheroes.
Yeah, well, what it really comes down to is, what it really makes it look like is that, wow, this movie sucks. Because even though they're supposed to come off like Christian superheroes, that kind of in and of itself is a problem.
Yeah.
Because you're like, look, I don't know how to say it other than this. If Jesus is real in your horror movie, well, that's just kind of all the tension. You know, at the end, it's just going to be a Deus Ex Machina, literally, because that's what happens. Hey, God, fix everything. Okay. And you're like, what the fuck are you gonna do if you're like, you know, just able to call the big guy in the clouds in order to fix everything?
I was talking with Jack about this. I watched a video a while back that was about, it was specifically about mental illness depictions in media, and it talked about the good story problem, with the idea being that many of the tropes and trappings that are satisfying to most viewers that we have basically come to understand as being good stories, they're in direct conflict with depictions of mental illness. Like, for example, if you're telling a story of someone who is extremely sad for most of the story and they're struggling with their sadness, then you kind of want them by the end of the story to overcome it and not be sad anymore. But the problem is, if you're actually depicting someone with actual clinical depression, then that's a very harmful depiction.
It's a very hollow depiction.
Yeah, because it's not actually something that's going to be possible for a real person going through that. They might be able to like manage their depression, but they're never going to fully get rid of it and just like happily ever after, sunshine and rainbows. Right,
exactly.
You know? And I feel like these movies, and especially this one, suffers from the good story problem, and because like naturally,
that's giving this movie way too much credit.
Well, yeah, like I'm not to say that it's actually a good story, because to be fair, most of those like depictions of mental illness aren't necessarily good stories either. But
no,
you know what I mean.
They generally aren't. Yeah,
you know, but like I'll give you like. Naturally, if you're telling a spooky ghost story, then you want the ghosts and the demons to be real, because most often when they're not real, audiences tend to be very disappointed.
Yeah, it tends to suck.
Naturally, if you're going to adapt these stories, then you're going to want to do that. But by doing that, you're also reinforcing the myth that is the Warrens.
Right.
And this movie kind of has that like tenfold. A great example of an instance of that really bugging me in the movie is, you know, if you have like a movie with a character with a superpower, right? And there's the skeptic person who doesn't believe they have the superpower.
Right.
Then you have the moment where the person demonstrates their superpower and the skeptic is proven wrong, and they have to go, oh my God, my entire world is now shaken, right?
Right.
In normal circumstances, in normal superhero stories, that's very fun and very satisfying, because you're like, oh man, the superhero really showed them.
Yeah, because you know that the superhero's got an actual superpower.
But in this instance, we're talking about like a real murder, her demonstrating to the skeptic, who's actually right about the situation in reality, in real life, he's right about the situation. Yeah. Demonstrating to the cop that her superpower is right, and that it actually is this demonic thing, as opposed to what happened in real life. People were just fucking murdered. Yeah. You know? And so now you've perpetuated this really awful myth about a real thing. And this is true in the other movies to a certain extent, but for some reason this movie, like, it crossed a threshold. I don't know what that threshold was, but where it was too much for me.
Well, I think that a good way of putting it is that threshold probably is actual death.
Yeah.
Actual murder. Like the other two, it's like there are deaths in the other two movies, but no one actually died.
Yeah, most of
the event that they're based off of.
Most of the other movies were like specifically exorcism cases, and not the guy claiming to have killed someone because the devil did it case. And
yeah.
Which is also a whole nother string thing, because the movie presents it as, he was seeing a demon and he was flipping out, and it's actually one of the cooler sequences in the movie, but when you know what actually happened, it's kind of frustrating. And he accidentally stabs his landlord because he thinks the guy looks like a demon. In reality, he stabbed him after an argument.
Yeah. Yeah, stabbed him to death after an argument.
So like, my problem is that I feel like this movie, especially given the recent wave of the resurgence of satanic panic stuff we've been seeing in the media and from the more conservative sects of this country in particular.
Thank you, QAnon.
I felt like more so than the other two movies, this one was just extremely irresponsible.
It's not just irresponsible, although, don't get me wrong, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't normally like to judge media on its responsibilities to society at large.
Yeah.
But on a personal level, this crossed my personal line.
Yeah.
It didn't just cross, it threw up on it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the movie just sucks.
Yeah.
It's also incredibly stupid. My favorite example of this movie being stupid was when you find out that a witch is involved.
Yeah, at the center of this movie, unlike the other two movies, which were just demonic possession movies, this one involves a witch. So we have a human fucking villain in this, which makes it feel way more like a superhero story, by the way.
Yeah.
They have to confront the bad guy at the end with the monologues.
Yep.
And this is where this is probably also another thing that crossed my line. As someone who is a metalhead, I like games, I like metal music, I like horror movies. This movie tinged all the satanic panic buttons in me.
Yeah. Like, it's that close from fucking magic coming out of a heavy metal album or a D&D book.
It's like, she's a witch, she's a Satanist, and she wants to summon a demon because she's evil, and that's the only justification.
Yeah. Because like even in a horror movie, when you summon a demon, there's a reason.
Yeah.
It can be a batshit insane reason, but it's a reason. It could even just be, I'm going to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's at least a motivation, right? Here, it's literally like, you can't make sense of what a Satanist wants. And first of all, I'm like, all right, dude. First of all, yeah, you can, because we're actually very reasonable people. But more importantly, as a story, are you fucking kidding me? You just basically told me that you forgot to write anything.
Halfway through this movie, I half expected Geraldo to show up.
Oh, I know, right?
And just start preaching to the camera. And here's the thing. I like spooky ghost stories. I like exorcism stories. I've liked plenty of movies where the priest comes in and exorcises the demon out of the poor child, like The Exorcist. Yeah. I've liked many movies like that. Most of them don't feel like this one. This one to me just felt like it was written by someone who grew up in the 80s and 100% believed all the satanic panic shit.
No shit. Like, it's definitely the fucking perspective it's coming from. Like, and it does feel like those old, like, this is He-Man and why he is actually an avatar of the devil, It's like, oh my god.
The Conjuring always kind of had this kind of conservative lean to it because it's so fucking religious.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure.
But man, did this one feel like it tipped a scale for me.
Well, yeah, like it went down the quality tube of everything.
The one good thing I could say about the movie is really something that it carries over from the last two movies, and that's that, like, the two people playing the leads are still great. Like, they're still great at playing Ed and Lorraine, and their relationship is still fucking, like, precious as all fuck.
We look forward to whatever they do that's not this.
Much like the first two movies, I loved watching them as a couple together, but, like, goddamn, the rest of this movie is just...
Well, yeah, like you even got some like really great character actors in this damn thing. It's not a bullshit cast.
Fucking
either.
John Noble shows up for like a hot second.
Yeah.
And his role is fucking despicable as all fuck, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like I felt like not only was it despicable, I also thought it was just poorly written.
Oh yeah.
But he acts his ass off.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
he
role.
gave 100%.
It's that thing where it's like your performance is not like this movie's not worthy of your performance.
Well, yeah. It's like it's one of those things. He's such a good character actor that like he can sell any shitty dialogue that he's given, which is his superpower. The problem is that the story is so bad. It doesn't matter.
And that's the other thing. Probably because more so than the first two movies, this movie is going way off script and kind of adding its own little lore to it now. There's so much convenience to this plot.
Oh fuck yeah!
Like there's if not convenience, then they basically use Lorraine's like psychic abilities as this really frustrating crutch in a way I did not feel the first two movies did. The first two movies, she had that power, but it never felt like their constant get out of jail free card like they do in this one.
Yeah. Because, well, in the first ones, because her psychic powers were always like, here, have a breadcrumb.
Yeah.
You know, and this one, it's just sort of like, oh, and she finds the witch.
It reminds me of, I remember when the Doctor Who writers back in the day talked about why they initially got rid of the sonic screwdriver for a while.
Yeah.
And that was mainly because they found themselves using it as a crutch to like, oh, every time there's a problem, just whip out the sonic screwdriver and it would be solved.
And it just fixes it. Yeah.
You know, I kind of wish that the writers had written the script thinking about how would it operate if she didn't have the powers and then put the powers in after that.
Right, exactly.
Because otherwise it just constantly felt like, oh, like, well, of course these god powers she has is just gonna solve this whole thing that no one else can. It fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I still like. There's even like a scene, and this was the scene that just made this. I mean, okay, like trust me, like a lot of bad scenes in this movie, but this one just reached some sort of new kind of fucking stupid level for me.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a scene in a jail where there's an exorcism being performed.
Oh yes.
Where not only is there ridiculous fucking dramatic lighting that happens, they had to justify it mise en scène.
I remember that, yeah.
And you're just like, what? you had to show me the fucking floodlights coming on so that we could justify this fucking exorcist shot? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
So, we're gonna move on to the spoilers in a minute. The Conjuring, it was available on HBO Max. I don't know if it is anymore, but it's also available in theaters. If you decide to go see it in theaters, please be vaccinated first. That's.
Oh no, you don't want to fucking go watch this thing and get COVID because of it.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Don't make this movie be the reason you get it.
Don't. It's not. No, not worth it at all.
And with that said, let us move on to the spoilers. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the plot point that was the dumbest fucking shit in this goddamn movie, in my opinion.
Oh, yes.
So in this movie, Ed and Lorraine Warren, in trying to figure out what's going on with this demonic possession thing that's happening, they go to this one former priest played by John Noble, and John Noble because they found this totem underneath the house that was initially possessed. Which, by the way, these two, the possession thing and the murder thing, are only loosely connected in real life, but in the movie they really fucking like
they really try to weave it together,
and it's a mess.
Well, it's like, if you're gonna make up this bullshit subplot that didn't even happen, is this really the best you could do?
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. In real life, in Ed and Lorraine's thing, they did not find a totem or anything. So that's not even true to Ed and Lorraine lore.
Yeah.
Like, that's just movie bullshit. So, because they want to justify connecting these two things by having a witch that possessed these two people. Anyway.
Yeah, for no fucking reason, by the way.
So they bring the totem to John Noble. John Noble has his whole like, Satanists, you cannot reason with a Satanist, you cannot understand a Satanist, they are just evil. And it feels like it's just straight up like a fucking Geraldo Rivera speech from the 80s.
Well, yeah, and what it really is it's basically covering up for their shitty plot.
And then later on in the movie, they realize that the witch's spells must be coming from this one area because they find all these weird clues through Lorraine's psychic abilities and shit. And they go back to John Noble, and then they find out that John Noble had a daughter, and the reason why he's an expert on Satanists is because his daughter's a Satanist, and that the actual altar in which he's performing all the rituals is underneath his house. Now, Now, do I need to spell out how fucking convenient this is? They happen to go to the one former priest whose daughter was the fucking villain. They didn't just like,
Yeah. Because, like, let me put it this way. Like, for the first, like, half of the movie, you're convinced that this figure that the guy is seeing is the demon. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, you're like, oh, yeah, creepy woman over there. Like, probably a demon. I mean, hell... Why not? We already had, like, you know, fucked up doll and random nun. Why not this?
There's also this weird implication that his daughter was just evil from, like, birth.
Yeah.
And I was just...
Which is just sort of like... Yeah, but they don't, like... They never, like, fucking demonstrate
Are you just
this.
born a Satanist? Was that the idea?
Yeah, like, that seems to be the idea. It's like, oh, you're just born a Satanist, therefore, you're gonna create a fucking... First of all, apparently you're gonna make like this fucking labyrinth under a fucking dude's house. And I mean like with like cyclopean fucking masonry and shit. I'm just like, what? You know, like, really? And
well, it's weird because it's just like, okay, so he used to be a demon hunter himself, and so he has all these satanic relics all throughout his house that he keeps at his house because if they're out into the world, then it will cause all this chaos and awful shit. And then the ironic twist of twist, his daughter turns out to be a fucking Satanist and uses all that demonic power to fucking like...
Yeah, and I felt on the one hand, I was just sort of like, well, that's what happens when you keep evil power in the house, asshole.
And I don't know why. That plot point, my brain broke, and I just didn't care about the rest of the movie after that.
No! Like, well, what? Like, you don't know why the villain is doing it because they gave you that stupid out.
Oh, that's the other thing. She has no personality.
No, she has no personality. She has no motivation. You're just sitting there going, why is this happening?
The only motivation you get is John Noble's speech, which again, just feel like Geraldo Rivera's speech is about Satanists.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, and it's not even like, she doesn't even mustache twirl.
I half expected Alex Jones to come out and be like, they're eating babies underneath the pizzeria, and that was gonna be the plot of the movie.
Like, he's just gonna fucking come in at the end. It's like, they're eating babies at pizzerias that make the frogs gay. Credits, you know?
Just watch, that's gonna be the next Conjuring movie. The haunted pizzeria where the Satanists eat babies. I honestly think this is a franchise that's overstayed its welcome, in my opinion.
Oh, at this point, definitely.
Most of the spin-off movies, I don't think needed to be spin-off movies. You could have done a haunted doll movie without it being the Warrens doll. You could have done a haunted nun movie without it being some random nun that they encountered in one fucking plot that had nothing to do with the nun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you needed to. Like, I actually, like, at this point...
Hey, man, Insidious 2 had a nun. We need one, too.
Like, at this point, I think the good stories you could tell out of this have been told, and now we're just continuing this... I'm going to say it again. Propaganda for the Warrens, and I've reached my limit with it.
Yeah. We done scraped the bottom of the barrel at this point.
Yeah,
you know?
I think...
Nowhere to go but down.
You know, like...
Well, what do you do?
And it's frustrating to me because this movie has like moments that I'm like, oh, that was a really cool thing. Like, I really liked that one scene in the tunnel when it's Lorraine is running towards Ed. But it turns out to be the witch, and like she passes through the shadow, and then it's the witch that comes out the other end.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool effect, and it was actually really awesome. I wish it was in a better movie, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if you compare this to the other religious movie I saw this year, The Unholy, The Unholy had like a better plot, but it was like so badly made that it just didn't work. This has an awful plot, but has so many like well-made elements that you wish the plot was better.
Yeah, but the story itself is so bad that you can't get over it.
You know,
like I can't even remember. Like I fell asleep, like part of the way through the fucking movie, where I was just like, "Oh shit, did I miss anything?" And you're like, "No,"
because there's a point halfway through this movie where it's just this boring spinning of the wheels that happens. Like there's like one kind of interesting scene where they go to this morgue to investigate this body of this separate murder that they've connected to this thing because the same satanic ritual was performed and yada yada yada. In real life, these things are not connected at all. It's complete bullshit. And in the morgue, she like connects with the witch, and then the witch connects with her, and then there's this weird back and forth. It was the one scene that felt like it was bringing back some of the spooky ghost shit from the previous movies, but like there wasn't enough of that.
Well, yeah. Also, like, wouldn't that have been a cool moment to give the bad guy a motivation and how to discover it?
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't that have made things interesting? No, can't do that. Fuck that. Shit this one out.
Yeah, I actually went into this movie because I knew it was getting some bad press, like wanting to defend it, and I couldn't by the end of it. You know, and it's possible that I've changed since the first Conjuring came out. Given the state of the world right now and the resurgence of satanic panic and stuff like that, so I'm a little bit more sensitive.
Like, yeah, well, let me put it this way: like, I'm sometimes very sensitive to that shit. Like, the first Conjuring, I only wasn't a big fan.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think it was a terrible movie. I was just like, I'm not a big fan of this. This is, you know, I give it a thumbs in. But this one is thoroughly thumbs down, where I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, so even if you didn't like the first Conjuring movie, it's still a step down.
It's still a step down.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely a step down from the others.
So we actually have 2 more vlogs to record, so we're going to wrap this up. Any final thoughts on The Conjuring 3?
This movie sucks.
Yeah. I'm sorry, if you like the movie, that's fine, but man...
No, if you like the movie, it's bad and you should feel bad. I can't...
I do not agree with him. And with that said, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
You can find me and tell me how... You could try to explain to me how great a misunderstood masterpiece this fucking movie is over on Twitter at JackSatanWave. You can fucking catch me streaming every Thursday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at Count Jackula on Twitch TV. And if you fucking flood that chat with bullshit about Conjuring 3, I have a button. I just want to let you know. And it says ban. Alright? And I'm not afraid to fucking use it. God, I hated this movie. And you can find me on...
You do know that's just gonna happen with all your regulars now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have Sadie Satanas in your chat going, The Conjuring 3. And you'd be like, God damn it.
Well, the thing is, we already talked about the Conjuring. Me and Sadie actually already talked about the Conjuring 3. We were like, oh my God. Like, you knew it was gonna be bad. But experiencing it is a whole other pain in itself.
Yeah. But I mean, now she's just gonna do it to fuck with you.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, probably. All right. You can also find me on Instagram, Satanic Jackula. Where can I find your ass?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru, at the Horror Guru on Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema, and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you would like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way. And if you made it this far into the vlog, this far, all the way through the goddamn vlog, then I want you to put hashtag suck Satan's dick. Put hashtag suck Satan's dick and work it somewhere into your comment below. That way I'll know that you watched all the way through and that you're one of the true gorehounds. And with that said, peace out, my fellow Gorehounds, and I'll catch you in the next vlog.
This thing is like a fucking hemorrhoid in my brain, man.
I know what you mean. It's been gnawing at my brain because like it hit me on some level of annoyance that movies normally don't.
Yeah.
I'm not normally offended by movies.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and
Exactly.
I've watched so many like intentionally offensive movies. I watched so many movies that are like, oh, see if you can get through this. But for some reason, this movie hit a part of my brain where I was just like, oh no, you didn't. You know,
yeah. It's kind of like it's kind of like where Funny Games is.
Yeah.
Almost.
Almost, yeah.
I didn't like Funny Games either.